Hello and welcome guys, my name is Badger and welcome to another painting video, and in today's video we shall be painting the Ultramarines, the 13th Legion, the tip-top Legion of all time, best ever, winning all the awards, etc, etc, etc. So make sure you've got your miniatures ready, get your cup of coffee, get your cup of tea, and let's just get stuck into it. Alright, and this is the miniature starting off from black primer as per usual. We've got a bit of skin to paint as well. However, first of all, we are going to be painting the blue, the armor first of all, starting off with Macragge blue right here. Getting that onto a wet palette or something. We've watered it down, as you can see, slightly too much. It's not quite enough pigment and it's running too smoothly. So it's not ideal, but we're just going to wait for this to dry and just come back and add more layers as per usual. All right, as you can see, that layer has dried. Onto the second one. Going on much smoother now. That previous layer was it was strange. Even the surface was a bit weird, although there wasn't quite enough pigment in there, but it was pooling up in quite a nasty fashion. So we are on with the second layer of Macragge blue. It's a beautiful color for one of the best legions ever. This is the third layer, as you can see right there. This may very well be the last layer before moving on to the next stage as well. All right, I do believe that is the end of the third and final layer of that color. We're going to use some Nuln oil. Guess what that's going to be used for? Yep, you guessed it. Recess shading. Probably what I should have done is I should have done the undersuit and then broken out the Nuln oil and got it all done at the same time, but I didn't. So we're just going to go ahead and do all the recess shading, panel lining, etc. with the Nuln oil right now, making sure a decent amount gets into all the crevices, along all the cracks and things. Gonna get that bit right. Unfortunately, that wrist is right in the way. That bit right there. We've got to do the top of the knees as well. I'm just going to wick away any excess there with the damp brush. So the panel lines we're going to get with the Nuln oil. We're going to get that sort of a lower bit of the upper thigh armor where it meets the knee, as you can see. All right, now we've started getting that bit of knee joint there. We're going to do the undersuit now with Skavenblight dinge. So we're going to get all of the sort of undersuit, the buttocks, the back of the knee. Probably require a couple of coats. We have thinned it down quite a bit. Just wait for each layer to dry. Build the opacity up so we don't see any blue through it. Then we can move on to the next step. All right, just had to reverse the angle there to get that bit of knee that we missed out. We get that bit there. Hopefully we can with the brush. We did. And now we're moving on to Nuln oil. Getting a nice even coat of this color. This is the old recipe, I should clarify. I don't have the new Nuln oil yet. I don't quite know how it works compared to the one that I'm using. I will endeavor to get some next time I make a decent paint order. But for now, Nuln oil, something similar, that'll work wonders. So we're going to going back to the Macragge blue. We're going to tidy up any sort of excess Nuln oil that kind of ran where we didn't want it to. So over those weird toe things, I don't know what that part of the armor is. Over the end of the foot, it looks weird. But getting the upper thigh armor there as well. Tidying up that bit of blue. That sort of excess bit of Nuln oil on that lower thigh armor. And as I've said, I do like to do... I'm trying to just do one leg rather than the entire miniature and get lost on various parts. So, tidy that blue up. And now we can move on to the first chunky highlight, which is Calgar blue. We are going to endeavor to do a sort of relatively chunky highlight, getting those weird armored toe things. Just they bemuse me every time I see them. And we obviously got all of the edge highlighting to do. We're going to do a chunky edge highlight, and then we'll follow that with a finer, proper edge highlight afterwards. So just run that sort of along any of the armor edges. I don't tend to do the lower part of the upper thigh plate, where it sort of hits the back of the knee, I don't tend to edge highlight that bit. I don't really know why I don't do that lower bit, but do the lower bit of the leg armor. It's very strange, but it's something I just ended up doing. Obviously, if you would like to do the lower bit of the thigh plate there, then absolutely go ahead and do it. It's your own personal preference at the end of the day, which is really all that matters. I think this paint was slightly too watery by the looks of it, so hopefully I will be coming back to do a second pass of this chunky highlight. As you can see, we are on with that second pass at the moment. Just trying to build up the opacity. We've got to get around the that bit there, the back of the leg, with our highlights. Just we're having to use the point of the brush rather than the side with some of these parts, but you just take it slow and steady and you will get there in the end. You can always go back and tidy up if something goes awry. Also, as you can see, we are, rather than fast forwarding the footage, what I've decided to do is give it a go just playing at normal speed and just doing the voiceover for it as much as I can. And when I basically run out of words to say, I will cut those bits out of the footage. Rather than in previous videos, I've sort of gone at 400 times speed at some points, if not slightly faster, to show as much as I can. But I think once I've shown enough of the same thing over and over again, it kind of loses its, I don't know, point. But moving on to the final edge highlight, which is Fenrisian Grey. The brush, I've thinned it down just enough so it flows off the brush nice and easily, but it doesn't flood the surface of the miniature. I've said this several times, but just to reiterate it. And also, we are going to have to use the point of the brush at certain points. It's not going to be, we're not going to be able to do the edge of the entire, well, every single edge with the edge of the brush. Using the point where required, like right now, may have to come back and do another pass as well, just to bring that brightness up. And I suppose you could indeed make these highlights more extreme if you really wanted to, with adding a bit of white in there or something like that. And as you may have noticed right now, the entire miniature is painted blue, and I have edge highlighted the majority of it. We're going to work on these steel rivets now. At least I hope so, because I just pointed in their general direction. Steel rivets, I obviously meant gold rivets. We're going to use a Retributor armor. It's going to give us a nice, deep, rich gold that we want to work with. And so we're just going to get all of the sort of the main chunk of the rivet. I don't know. I don't really, top of the rivet, I guess. And then work that gold down the sides until it just about falls short of the blue shoulder pad itself. If you make a mistake, a wet brush to the rescue will help. Otherwise, you can wait for it to dry and just clean it up with a bit of blue paint. Oh, we slightly went over there. We're going to hopefully tidy that up shortly. But that's it's the majority. We're just going to get this back piece of this rivet. They do take a bit of time to get done. It's just how it goes, unfortunately. It's either paint the entire thing, the stud, the rivet color, and then paint the bits around it, or vice versa. Either take time. However, and we're going to use Reikland Flesh Shade. This is going to be our color that we're going to use to shade our gold stud rivet thingamajigs, making sure this color goes all the way down to where it hits the shoulder pad itself. So it adds a little bit of shading there. And then, unfortunately, we did kind of drift off camera a bit. All right, there we go. It's all shaded quite nicely. Unfortunately, some of it was off camera. I do apologize, but you got the general gist of it, hopefully. Before we move back, we're going to put some Gehenna's gold. That's how I'm going to say that name. We're going to use this as a sort of upper-facing gold highlight. And unfortunately, the issue, I think, was I'd moved the camera again, and I wasn't quite used to it in the position. I kept drifting back to my standard painting position, which is I'm going to have to mark the desk out with some tapes of taped bits of like a painting zone, I guess. So I was going to paint the sort of upward-facing surface, like as if he was standing upright and out in the sun, out in the air. So any bits sort of facing upwards, we'll paint with the Gehenna's gold, leaving the darker shaded gold in the shadow. All right, just like that, basically. We are going to use Liberator gold as our final kind of specular highlight, our brightest point on this. So we want a tiny little dot, really, on upward-facing bits. So just like that. Literally just like that. You can use I'm kind of using the light from the reflected in the gold right now as a sort of placement point for that reflection. There we go. Looks pretty good to me. Now we're going to use lead belcher. We're going to use this to start painting our steel or sort of metal parts, these shoulder strap things, for example. Make sure you get the edges of these straps as well where they go down to the armor, rather than just the sort of outward facing surface. Don't forget the little sides. Otherwise it does look a bit weird if half of them are blue. Back to our friend Nuln oil again. We're going to use that to shade all the crevices and where the metal hits the blue panels. So along the surface like that. All right, that Nuln oil is into all those crevices nicely. Now we're gonna jump up straight up to Stormhost Silver and add the sort of final highlights. We're not really gonna worry about going back to Lead Belcher. Just gonna go straight up to this color. It's gonna be nice and bright, and hopefully that Nuln oil in the crevices will be nice and sort of contrasty. Contrasty is a word, I hope. If it isn't, well, it is now. We're going to run with it. Trying not to get that silver into any of those crevices. I think I do make a slight mistake and have to go back and remedy it at some point. But right now, we're just going to use this to get the highlights. Struggle a bit and try and avoid hitting that shoulder pad there. That's all we basically want. The gun is going to be in front of him, so not a big deal. Bugman's Glow. Looks like we're going to be painting some flesh. My personal favourite. I know I do need to improve painting skin a lot, but I do also enjoy it. So here we go. Bugman's Glow. Obviously, water thinned down a fair amount with some water or some medium. All right, that looks to be our first coat of Bugman's Glow. I think that end of the nose needed a bit more paint. This is what we're going to be using next. Reikland Flesh Shade. And as, yeah, I do apologize. Again, the mini has drifted off camera again. But we get a good coat of Reikland Flesh Shade onto the entirety of the skin, making sure it goes into all the crevices where it butts up against any armor panels, etc., and that sort of head plate. We're going to go back to the Bugman's Glow. We're going to tidy up any little bits and pieces that need it. So the top of the head, like so, we're going to leave that darkened sort of Reikland Flesh shaded part untouched up by this shade, if that makes any sense. Leave the sort of crevices nicely shaded. So we are using the end of the brush. This is a size 2 brush. We're going to get those sort of eye bags, the sort of eyebrows bits there. We've got the nose, the sort of cheeks, that bit up there. We've got to increase the sort of contrast on the face. Otherwise, we're going to lose some detail in there. What are we going to do? Get that that chin bit. I mean, this is going to be a pretty basic painted miniature. We're not going to be... I don't believe I'll be doing any sort of 5 o'clock shadow or anything like that. Getting that nose though, I like to bring the highlights at the sort of the bridge of the nose where the eyebrows meet, I guess at the center. That's where I like to put the highlight rather than the highlight on the end of the nose, which does look a bit weird. A nice even coat on the entirety of the head is the way to go. All right, looks like we've built up our saturation, just working on that sort of side of the face there, and when that sort of wrinkle of the side of the mouth. Looking pretty good. I'm going to go up to Cadian Fleshtone. It's going to be our sort of mid-tone highlight. Want a decent amount on the... That's the part there I was talking about. Right there, I like to put the majority of the highlight of the nose, just sort of where it hits the eye, between the eyebrows. Trying to get those sort of cheekbones. We don't want it looking like a catwalk model. But do want to add some definition so that you can actually see what's going on with the face. So just look, take it slowly. Don't load up the paint, the brush massively with paint. You don't want it going all over the place. I'm going to build those colors and build that opaqueness up. Lower jaw needs to be gotten. As I said earlier, I'm not going to be putting like sort of 5 o'clock shadow in. That would be basically one of the last things I'd do, is glaze in some sort of turquoise blue. Sort of add, desaturate it and add a bit of color variation on the lower jaw. Getting that highlight along that fold of the nose down to the mouth. Corner of the jaw. Get that chin. As you can see, the top of the head is definitely missing some paint. So that's what we're going to do right now, even if it is completely out of focus. I have to change the angle of the brush of the miniature to make sure it's in focus when we paint it. So it's going to bring that color in from the sort of side of the head up towards the top, because when you remove the brush from the miniature, that's where the majority of the paint is sort of unloaded from the brush. So moving from our darker color to our highlighted color is the general move. Sometimes it's impossible to do that. You just have to kind of deal with it and work with it. But we just need to build the kind of lightness or the brightness up on the top of that head. Unless he's just been out in the sun and his skin has got sort of very sunburned or something like that, and it's looking rather red. From this angle, it does kind of remind me of one of those biology models where you just see the muscle on the head and like the sort of high points of where the bones stick out. Kind of reminded me of that right there. The top of that head, I think you need to go back and do some work on, Badger. But however, we are going to move on to some Flayed-one flesh. Oh, crikey. Folks, we're doing some motion tracking as I zoom in for this final bit. Oh, you see that bit right there? That's where I put my sort of final highlight. Hopefully for sort of the brightest point of the nose. I did zoom in a little bit. I thought it might help for this tiny bit. We're trying to get that up a bit of the, I don't know, whatever that bit, cheekbone. The brows right there. We need to get the folds going down from the top lip, sort of down towards the side of the mouth. That makes it from the nose to the side of the mouth even. Get those brows. It's looking pretty good to me. I think I did go back and put another coat of Cadian fleshtone over the entirety of the head because it's looking a lot. That Cadian fleshtone has sort of spread out further. And we're now working some of that Flayed-one flesh into the very top. I do not want to coat the entire miniature with this color. Will get very pale. Oh, hello. I'm using all the techniques today. This is when I was trying to paint the eye bag. That's what I'm calling it. Although I don't know. Answer below in the comments if that is called an eye bag, because my brain is completely drawing a blank right now. And that brush is looking absolutely horrific. All right, there is our head. And yeah, it looks like I don't think I will be painting the eyes in this particular video. You can certainly go ahead, but this is tabletop ready, folks. I'm already spending a bit too much time on this, really, for sort of an entire army. But if they were all without their helmets, at least, I'd be spending too much time. 1 or 2 miniatures, I'm very happy to spend quite a bit of time on it because, frankly, I like doing this sort of stuff. And it's all good practice. I think I had decided to smooth out some of these colors. It was looking a bit too splotchy. It looks like I thinned down the paint a smidgen and started to bring that highlighter around to some of these other surfaces a bit more and smooth things out. Use some of that Flayed-one flesh to paint the teeth at the same time. Might as well, it's on the brush. And it is a pretty suitable color, sort of relatively ivory colored. There we go, get those teeth. I think I just do the top ones. That's all you really need. The eyes, probably a bit of a struggle. However, if you want to give them a go, an off-white color, I would suggest not using white for painting the whites of the eyes, even though they're called the whites of the eyes. An off-grey color, Slanesh hide, demonette hide, Slanesh grey, demonette hide even. Something potentially like that will get us there. But that's the armor. It's suitably shaded. This is for a tabletop miniature, folks. And here is the final piece. I'm very happy with how it looks. And as I said, for a tabletop miniature, I reckon it looks very good. It's probably taken slightly longer than really required, but it's unfortunately just how I paint. We will revisit this miniature when it comes to basing. So hopefully you'll see that when it comes. Folks, thanks very much for hanging out with me today, as indeed we painted up the Ultramarine. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I will be painting more Ultramarines in the future. Obviously, I do have a 40k army of Ultramarines I'm working on very slowly, and I will be getting some more Horus Heresy things. So do make sure you've liked, subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, and goodbye.